I'm Bobby Hundreds. I'm the co-founder of The Hundreds. I always say I do a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing. And today I'm going to take you on a tour of my collection. As a designer and as a writer, I'm most inspired by drawing upon emotions and nostalgia and sentimentality. And so if you look within the context of our brand even, it's largely nostalgia and sentimentally based. Baseball cards, that would have probably been my first foray into I'm actually collecting for the specific purpose of collecting because they might increase in value. So baseball cards then spoke to comic books, and then basketball cards came afterwards. And so I think I'm pretty much in everything. You know, people ask me why I'm not into watches. I just don't wear watches. I don't like being mindful of time, so don't ever wait for me. This is just a fragment of everything that I have. I have even more in rooms in the back and stashed away in the archives. And so sometimes I feel like we have 90,000 square feet of warehouse just to hold our collectibles in our collections, which is ridiculous. But within this immediate room, I mean, you're looking at the breadth of my entire life. I'm looking around and I'm seeing things that I had when I was 5 and 6 years old. There's Garfield household items. I'm a big Garfield enthusiast. Of anything I've collected in my life, it's probably Garfield the most. It started with reading his comics and me emulating Jim Davis, the artist's illustrations. I always wanted to draw cartoons, and that was largely influenced, if not motivated, by Jim Davis and Garfield. Secondarily to that, Jim Davis was also a master licensor, the master of licensing. And my childhood bedroom was Garfield pillowcases, bed sheets, erasers. This was my childhood clock. The idea of my favorite comic strip and cartoon not being just something that I read and I experience and interact with on a 2D level, but to be immersed in a Garfield world. Any way that I could consume and collect Garfield was really enjoyable for me as a young kid because he was like my best friend. My attitude was largely shaped by him. I love lasagna to this day because of Garfield. I don't necessarily hate Mondays, but I've always felt like when he says that, he's just being sarcastic. I don't think he actually hates anything, and I think the negativity is all a front with Garfield, which I jive with, like, I get that. I collect a lot of art, and art comes in all different forms and shapes, and ceramics have actually gotten quite trendy over the last few years. These are Sharif's. Sharif is kind of leading the charge and charging the lead. He's just the homie, but also making these really beautiful pieces of ceramics. There's Jess Chen pieces. Jess Chen is a really incredible, talented tattoo artist out of Canada, but she's also gotten into ceramics. And a lot of this, I think, was spurred, if not inspired, by what was happening during the pandemic with artists just trying to find different lanes. Probably one of the most famous and notable ceramics artists today is Seth Rogen, the actor. Seth has actually gotten pretty proficient because he has access to the world's best ceramicists, and so he's learning from the best, and he also has access to the best materials and tools, but he really means it. And he knew that I had wanted one for so long, and to be gifted one of these, this is probably one of my most prized possessions. If this entire place burns down, I'm gonna come back for my Seth Rogen piece right there. A lot of Back to the Future stuff. When we were younger, there just weren't a lot of Back to the Future memorabilia or collectibles around, and that generation has grown up and the demand is there and there's a marketplace for it. It would take me probably another lifetime to configure this all. You're looking at some of it right here, different bear bricks and DeLoreans, and my wife got me that one for Christmas. She actually got it for my son and then I stole it. Because I was just like, you're not gonna care. Not the way that I care about him. I used to own the world's best DeLorean. It had 500 miles on it. It was preserved in a museum for 30 years before I bought it. I don't have it anymore. It was used in the Beastie Boys' last music video. It's been used in a bunch of commercials. I still miss the car and I still miss the appeal of the design. And so I have a bunch of replica versions of them from different parts of the film series. The gold DeLorean, there are 2 in the world. It was part of an American Express campaign in 1981. Transformers did a 35th anniversary version. Finally, took them long enough to make a time machine. The sneakers that I own, people might expect or anticipate that they're gonna be the most sensational sneakers out there, really expensive shoes that are headline grabbers, but they're not. My favorite pair of sneakers in my collection are always gonna be my Converse Chuck Taylors and All-Stars. The end-all be-all of what a good sneaker is. This is the alpha and omega. It's reduced down to its most classic lines and shapes, and Nike is embodied by a swoosh, a Converse All-Star. Like, this is the logo, the entire product design. It's really good for me personally to look down at my feet and just remember at the end of the day that it's just canvas and rubber, and we're here to design and do good work, but to bring us back to our basics. I have Air Jordan 4s here because black 4s to me are the perfect sneaker. When I think of sneaker culture and sneaker collecting, you can't be in the space without having black 4s. It speaks to an era of design. It's really period specific, but it also has transcended multiple generations. So in the year 2022, an Air Jordan 4, I think is still really relevant and meaningful and has its place in sneaker culture. I have to speak on these. When you scrub through sneaker history, you might be hard pressed to find many people mentioning these, but they speak to a really specific person who grew up in the 80s and 90s and remember this period of Reebok pump when they were larger than Nike Air. It seems super gimmicky now, but to issue a sneaker for tennis and the pump has been translated into a fuzzy yellow tennis ball, that was just such an innovative design choice. Michael Chang, an Asian American tennis player who they were trying to position as a rock star up against Andre Agassi. He was like the Asian Michael Jordan to me. These are like Asian Jordans. Everyone needs to know this was the Asian American Jordan right here. This is just an homage to Virgil. When he was dropping these shoes, I reached out to him to ask, for the connect and the plug. And with Virgil's passing, it's still really bizarre to me and to many of us. It feels like he's still very present within the culture and also within the universe. And I think it's because his design has become so ubiquitous in our lives, right? And so sneaker design and product design and fashion have forever been impacted, if not the course has changed because of Virgil's fingerprint on it. When I look at these and I wonder what this is gonna do, what it did for that generation of sneakers over the last 10 years, and then what we will continue to do over the forthcoming decades and how young people will remember Virgil's era of design. This is my way of understanding that Virgil and his work is immortal. But of all the sneakers that he worked on, I would say the Prestos were my favorite. This is a very, very famous chain. It is the Hundreds Ben Baller chain. It's just funny because half the people believe that it's real and half the people thought it was fake. And no matter what I tell them, they think it's the opposite. So to the people who believe it's real, I tell them, actually it's fake or it's real, and they're like, no, it's probably the other way around. So nobody believes me anyway, so I don't say what it is, if it's real or fake. If you want to believe it's a $3 million chain, that's up to you. Rappers love coming in here wearing it. One of the last people to put this around their neck was Nipsey Hussle. We got Nipsey energy around the Hundreds Ben Baller chain, and if you ever run into Ben Baller, ask him about it. He'll tell you the full story that he made the world's most expensive chain, and it went to the hundreds. Here are some of my cameras, and I'm not a big camera collector, but I am a photographer. When we started the Hundreds and when we started my blog in 2003, I had already been blogging a lot and had been using this camera. This is the actual camera. It's a Canon Rebel XT, pretty much at the nascent stage of DSLRs, right? So prosumer photography on a digital level. People were making that transition from being film photographers to digital, and I started documenting not just our lifestyle and culture, but the street culture and the street fashion world around us. And so the Hundreds and the story of our brand and like my personal journey, my personal narrative into this space was seen through the lens of this camera that you're looking at right here. When Joey Badass first visited the studio, of everything that was in the room, he gravitated towards this because he's just like, man, I used to live on that blog and was staring at all those photos and wanted to live that life. So this is a real relic. I probably have somewhere between like 75 and 100 different NFTs on different levels. The first NFT that I fell in love with and I started collecting was CryptoPunks. They're arguably one of the first on the blockchain. Gary Vaynerchuk persuaded me to buy it. I was in the middle of dinner. He's just like, get on the Zoom right now. It was me, Logan Paul, Casey Neistat, Beast, Mr. Beast, and a few other friends. And he asked us all, who has a CryptoPunk? And I didn't have one. I was kind of like, I don't have one of those, and they're pretty expensive. At the time, I thought they were prohibitively expensive, and it's just a fraction of where they are today. He was just like, well, if you want to, stay on this call or whatever, like, we're gonna go out and buy it. And so he kind of forced us all to go out there and buy punk, and this was the punk that I bought. It opened up my eyes to just like what the marketplace could provide in terms of collector culture, in terms of the psychology around NFTs and understanding the trading and the experience of it all. This is important for me. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. There have been a few moments in the marketplace where I could have unloaded it and done pretty well. But again, there's a sentimentality around the CryptoPunks, and especially this one, because without this, I don't think I would have understood the mechanics around our own project. And so this was a very expensive piece of education for me.
How much was it, and how much is it worth now?
Oh, well.
How much was it, and what was the best offer you got?
It was, at the time, it was $20,000 US. When punks were peaking at some point in the later half of the year, it was probably about $500,000, which happens with NFTs. It's somewhere in between there at this point. But yeah, crazy.